Havoc.
News, interviews, and more.
We just reek of Huntsville Havoc hockey.
Welcome to another edition of the Reekin Havoc podcast. I'm Tim Lambert. This week we've got what I'm calling a Dropping the Gloves episode, a compilation of our Huntsville's greatest hit segments from various shows that feature players' fight memories. We've also got a few announcements to pass along as well later on, so keep it here as the Reekin Havoc podcast continues.
The Reekin Havoc podcast.
One of the worst feelings you can have is that of being stranded. Well, BT's Towing, Tire, and Truck Repair makes that a thing of the past, with 24/7 towing services and roadside assistance in the northern Alabama and southern Tennessee areas. But that's not all. They also offer truck and trailer repair, mobile welding, brake service and repair, new and used tires, and other major and minor repairs. Their name says it all, BT's Towing, Tire, and Truck Repair. For 24/7 response, call 497-8234. That's 497-8234. BT's Towing, Tire, and Truck Repair. Got something to say? Put it on a t-shirt, or hoodie, or apron, or even an iPhone case. Just go to daddyoscustomtees.com and make it happen. Look through their selection of ready-made designs, or make one of your own. Check out their special hockey designs, too. With Daddy O's Custom Tees, you can truly have it your way. Look for Daddy O's Custom Tees on Facebook, follow them on Twitter or Instagram, or go online to daddyoscustomtees.com. That's DADDYOS Custom TEES.com. Daddy O's Custom Tees. They've got your back or front.
Let's go in the slot.
As I mentioned earlier, this is a Dropping the Gloves compilation edition, so various players make it in the slot this week. Starting us off,
former Channel Cats and Havoc forward Luke Phillips.
We were in Knoxville, and I think we were up 6 or 7-2, and they had a real tough guy, Jeff Hansen, that wanted to fight, and Gibby kept saying no, 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 no. And after the guy kept following me, I was like, maybe he doesn't really mean no. So we had a pretty good fight, but I remember because we had fought Knoxville so many times that year, I got him confused with a different player who was left-handed. So I was throwing lefts, thinking the other guy was throwing lefts. Well, this Jeff Hansen had a hammer of a right-handed fist. So right as I realized this is the wrong guy, I saw his right fist coming in. It hit me super hard. I didn't go down. I went to the box. I remember sitting in the penalty box wondering, how did I get here? I was just in a fight. And then I remember stepping off the ice in Knoxville. And the first step I took was the last thing I remembered. The next thing I remembered, I was on the bus in Huntsville, getting off at the arena with a concussion, and then having Gibby say, like, this is why you got to pick your spots.
Former defenseman Alex Kilcheski.
We go to Macon. We're winning like 4-0 or something. I see Tucker Scantleberry going to punch one of my guys, so I come in from behind him, grab him. We get into a scuffle. He headlocks me, and then the next day he's traded to our team. He's my roommate. So it's like and then we got to know each other. So it was funny to have, like, that has never happened to me, and it's just hilarious.
Former Channel Cats tornado and Havoc right wing Chris George.
We were playing the Memphis River Kings, and Jonathan Dubois, who was my centerman, he got kind of cross-checked behind the play by one of the Memphis players. Patrick Clement is his name. You never forget. So I just, skated down and then, without even thinking, dropped my gloves and started trying to throw punches as many as I could because, this guy was a bigger, tougher guy and caught everybody off guard doing that because when you look at my career and my statistics, you notice my penalty minutes are not high. I was basically defending a teammate. So that was one. And the second one I can remember was we were playing the Macon Whoopie, and there was a little scrum behind the net, and I got kind of cheap shotted, and I threw an elbow that dropped a guy. Next thing I know, there's a little melee going on, and I'm getting jumped by two guys. And that wasn't one of my proudest moments, but it happens.
Former forward Mike O'Sullivan.
I ended up hitting some guy and knocked him down, and Gary always tried defending his teammates because that's what he was always doing. And the guy's skate came up and hit me in the nose, and my nose was a little bit blooded up. And Gary came over and started punching that guy, thinking that guy did something. And I was like, oh, man. He's like, I got your back. Don't worry about it, man.
Havoc forward Cole Reginato.
In Birmingham, I had a good fight against a big fella. He was going after a couple of our players, and he hurt two guys, kind of dirty shots to the head. And that's kind of the ref's job to keep that stuff out of the game. But two dirty hits, I thought, that went uncalled. So I had a good fight against him, just said, hey, tired of you running around with you on the answer. And he said, yeah. So we fought, there's enough of that and there's no more running around, kind of own each other's respect after that. In junior, I got traded to St. John's T-Dogs. And I remember there was this player in the league, Matt Murphy. He's an older 20-year-old veteran player, great defenseman, one of the better players in the league, to be honest. I just remember kind of looking up to him when I was on Cape Breton and just kind of watching him saying, I could really tell he's a pro and he's going to go somewhere. And then, 2 weeks later, we're on the same team and we were down 2 goals against Bathurst. And he looked at me and said, hey, kid, I heard you can fight. Why don't you get us something, get us going? So I went up to their older 20-year-old tough guy and said, hey, man, can you give me a fight? And he kind of looked at me and said, who are you? I'm not going you. So I kind of just went after him. He wouldn't fight, but we got a penalty. So we're in the box. And he's saying he's not fighting. So I was like, all right. I step out of the box, and their skilled Russian player was coming down. And I put my shoulder into him. He did like a big backflip. And so he was right there. So it got him to fight me. So we fought. It was like my first real tough guy opponent. And, I did more than good. I think I might have won that tilt. And I went back to the bench, and all the boys were, it was my first game, and I was a young rookie. They were all loving it and tapped me on the back saying, thanks, bro. That was awesome. So that was kind of the start of that feeling of doing it for the team and seeing it pay out. Kind of felt nice, and those guys appreciating it. And it just kind of made me feel like home pretty quick.
Havoc defenseman Dominic Procopio.
I think my favorite fight in Huntsville was probably against Pensacola. I mean, we ended up not winning, but we were kind of flat, and Malik Johnson in Pensacola, I asked him to fight. He said, yeah, I think I got the better of him, in my opinion. And I usually don't fire the bench up, but I tried to get the guys going, and they responded pretty well. I think we lost in like overtime or something, but we came back from like a 3-goal lead. So I was like, hey, like it works, right? So it was good. It's not that I love it. It's just, I'm a big guy. I'm physical. Guys they get mad. And then the next thing you know, it's like, okay, if no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. No one in our team and organization is there to fight, right? We're all there to play hockey. It's just kind of a byproduct of it.
Former defenseman Jason DeGarry.
There was a Fayetteville game when we had 6 fights, and I think the puck got dropped in the same face-off circle 6 times. And I think 3 seconds had come off the clock or something. And everybody lined up again across from one guy. Like I know I moved into I kicked out Carsey out of a face off to line up against the guy that I had fought before. I'm playing defenseman lines up as a center to fight my guy. And then we just kept on going and going and going until they had enough. And, we had a penalty box full of guys and go on to continue winning.
Former Havoc goalie Max Milosic.
My last year playing in Quad City, I was so tired. Guy ran into Sam Hunter in front of the net. I was already kind of fired up from a goal that they called before that was goalie interference. Guy came in and ran into me, so I grabbed him, kind of just grabbing him, pulling him around, nothing too serious, and he swung on me and ripped my helmet off, so I said, okay, it's time. And that's when I got him good with a right. Then the Quad City goalie, Reesop, I didn't even know he was coming down because there's so much going on. I'm already involved with a player, and he's skating down, and he tapped me on the butt with his stick, which I didn't even feel at first. And then I turn around, and I see him. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's time. I guess we're doing this. So I turn around to try to skate towards him. I'm already cramping. I'm tired. I'm like, I just got to get him quick off the start, or I'm in trouble here. And then I go to line up with them, and then the refs got in between. And I was going to try to break free, but it was the last weekend before playoffs. And I asked the ref, I said, hey, if I do this, am I going to be suspended for playoffs? And the ref looked at me, and he said, I don't know. I don't know the rules. So I was like, what do you mean? You're the ref? You don't know the rules? I said, okay, well, then, I guess I'm not doing this here. Like, he already had a hold of me, and I'm not going to try to break free from a ref and, break through with his arm and then get an extra game suspension. So it didn't really make too much sense. But I guess a lot of guys I've talked to on other teams would argue with me saying that I started it, but I never went out of my way to slash guys. I never went out of my way to punch guys unless they did something to me first or one of my teammates. It was always protecting my defenseman or protecting myself. I was never that goalie to hack someone in the back of the knee unless they were the ones starting the stuff, and then it's eye for an eye, I'm going to get you back. But yeah, it was a lot like Hageman. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening and everyone knows that the guy he's the turtle. The guy would never do anything here that was fair. He's always cheap shotting guys. I mean, I'll say that a lot of guys don't have respect for him. And I mean, I have videos of him coming by and elbowing me in the head, and I give him one back, and then he's looking at the ref putting his arms up. But they never called it most of the time if it was like that. They'd get the wrong end of the stick sometimes. They never saw the first. They just saw me kind of giving it back to him. But there was guys like that all the time in the league that were kind of running me. And most of the time when I got into it, I had good teammates where if I hit someone, they're coming in and they're protecting me and whatnot, which they probably got sick of it after a while. And they were probably like, oh no, here we go again. Max is hitting someone and I have to come in and then they're getting in a fight for it. And so I apologize to anyone that had to go in there and get in a fight for it because I started something or if I was hitting someone. But yeah, I always just like to protect myself and my teammates. And some guys will not have respect for the game and they don't care if they hurt someone. So you have to protect yourself out there.
Former Channel Cats and Havoc left wing James Patterson.
My first fight, which was in Fayetteville back in my rookie year with the Channel Cats, and it was the Fayetteville Force at the time, and we were in Fayetteville. There was just a lot of things going on. I mean, there was a lot of fights already, and tensions were up. A couple real heavyweight battles off the start, and then things just got out of hand. And I think what happened was somebody kind of ran into our goalie. And at this point, we already had the penalty boxes were full. I think 2 or 3 off each team were already in the locker room, kicked out. And I remember Pat Bingham, our coach, saying, somebody better get out there and get that guy. Because he had just hit the goalie somehow, some way. I don't really remember exactly what happened. And so it was my turn. When the line change happened, I went after and just skated after the guy. And we just started fighting. It was a good fight. It was pretty even matched. But at this point, as soon as you got in a fight, you're kicked out. So they're just kicking people out left and right. Well, it turns out that game, I think, is the most penalty minutes in a hockey game, I don't know, ever or something. If it's not anymore, it held the record for a long time. But there was hundreds of penalty minutes in that game. We knew at one time that there was maybe 15 to 20 fights. It was crazy. I think both of our goalies got kicked out. I think Georgie had to go put the pads on and finish the game in goalie.
Former center Kyle Clark.
We were playing Knoxville, and I remember it was my second year on the team, and someone got blindsided. Sam Hunter stepped in. He got kind of like a cheap shot. He got punched in the face. He wasn't expecting it. Everyone started to come together, and I was going in with the thought, okay, I'm just going to, what I usually do, just grab someone. I'm just kind of being a peacemaker. So I'm just going in, not expecting anything. And then I believe it was Murray, when he was playing on Knoxville, comes up, and he grabs onto me. I'm like, okay, we're just going to, stand here, hold each other most scrums happen. And then all of a sudden he drops his gloves. And next thing I know, he's swinging at me. And I'm like, oh, I think I think this is a fight. I think I'm in a fight right now. So then I, drop my gloves and honestly, everything went black after that. I'm just throwing punches. Luckily, the great staff we have got it all on film. Got some great pictures taken of it. But yeah, I'm swinging away. I think I take him down. I think I land on top, and I just remember going to the box. And it was a pretty exhilarating feeling. The crowd's all fired up, and I think I gave a couple let's go to the crowd, and yeah, it was a fun time. But then the first thought I had after that was oh, my mom is not going to be happy about this, because she's like, if you ever fight Kyle, you better not do it. I'm going to be so upset because I don't want you to get hurt. So I was the first thought I had was oh no. My mom's not going to be happy about this, but yeah, it all worked out fine. I was fine. I don't think I landed any big punches on him. He didn't land anything on me, so luckily got out unscathed, and that was a pretty fun time and a cool memory to have.
We'll be back with more of the Reekin Havoc podcast.
Time now for the Huntsville Havoc Pick of the Pack, a weekly spotlight.
Head coach Stuart Steffen.
Our equipment manager there, Kyle Harden, just won Equipment Manager of the Year. He's a younger guy, kind of grew up in Memphis there, was a stick boy for the River Kings for a long time, and then I think went on to the North American League and was an equipment manager there, and then did a year in Evansville, and then, he's been here the last 2 years, and, I think even from last year to this year, he's grown a lot, taken a big step as an equipment manager in that role, and his biggest asset, I think, for him is just an incredibly nice guy, willing to do anything for the players. We had our exit interviews the last couple of days here, and every single guy said, absolutely love Kyle. He's such a nice guy. He tries to help him out as much as possible and always willing to help the other players. And I think a big part of winning Equipment Manager of the Year is also being very accommodating to the other teams, being nice and treating them well when they come here. And then when we go places too, is just really trying to help out teams. So obviously having Kyle here for his second year, I think he's done a fantastic job, and always has a good attitude around the rink too. So definitely an easy guy to work with, and we're glad to have him and look forward to having him back next year as well. Cody Miller, he's our athletic trainer, just got named Athletic Trainer of the Year. Kind of back-to-back for him. Last year, he was the co-athletic trainer of the year with Kyle there from Fayetteville, but this year, yeah, he won it solo. He was in Birmingham for, quite a few years, and then came over when, our trainer...
My name is Joel, and I came to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in December of 1987 to be treated for osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. We didn't know anything about St. Jude. We didn't know what they meant, or that, when we got here, what we would do, how it would be taken care of. And when we arrived, we found out that my family wasn't going to have to pay for any of my treatment, not for my medicine, not for travel, not for housing, not for food. St. Jude was going to cover all that. St. Jude supported me in every way, from, taking that financial burden off my parents to making sure that all of my family was included in this time. St. Jude literally means everything to me. I get to go home to my family tonight. I get to cook dinner for them. That's what you're giving. You are giving us everything by supporting St. Jude. So thank you so much.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
This is John Gibson, and you're listening to the Reekin Havoc podcast.
Former Channel Cats and Tornado Center Phil Daigle.
We were playing Memphis, and we've been out, recovering from practice a little too late the night before. We had an exhibition game. I guess it was halfway through the middle of the second period, and I was like, dang, I was a little tired, let's say, and went to take face off, and I was like, I think I'm get out of here. So this young fellow was lined up against me in Memphis. I leaned over with my stick, and I pulled him from the back of his legs, and he just looked up at me, and I said, sorry, kid, your number just got drawn, buddy. So I dropped the gloves, and away we went. Down he goes, and we went down on top of him, and Dave Glassman reached down and go, okay, Diggs, that's enough. So I was like, okay, and we get up, and Glassman starts taking me to the penalty box. I said, Dave, where are we going? And he says, Diggs, we're going to the penalty box. I said, hell no, man. I said, I started that fight before you guys dropped the puck. I said, that's a game misconduct. You got to kick me out of here. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. And away we went, kicked me out.
Former forward Cheech Powers.
My first year, we ended up having a huge brawl with Macon. There was a little situation towards the end of the game, a little stick in the face, that then turned into a kind of a bench clearing brawl that resulted in a few suspensions.
Former Havoc Center Justin Rohr.
I ended up getting hit from behind in Huntsville my last year, and we got up and had a little. I think there was a little 3 or 4 of us. Well, maybe it was a full line brawl or not, but there was 3 or 4 of us guys all jumped in, but I ended up smashing my nose and had to play with a left crooked nose for the rest of the season, and then ended up getting it fixed. Had to go under the knife at the end of the year and have a nose job. So, yeah, that was one that does stand out. There's another college one that stands out. That was our last year. And, of course, you don't fight in college. You're wearing cages in NCAA. And had a goalie slash me. We had a big rivalry against these guys. There was actually a guy I played with in junior in Laurens. So I gave the goalie a little slash back, and he went down and flopped pretty good. And so then they had 2 guys jump me, and we all got our helmets off, and we were going at it, and ended up starting a pretty good line brawl on that one in college. So needless to say, we all got suspended for 3 games on that one.
Former Havoc forward Mike DeGurse.
I think my favorite fight was when I was playing for Winston-Salem, and Huntsville had a guy by the name of Craig Cox on their team, and he was a wily veteran coming on the downswing of his career, and I was just 20 years old coming into the pro ranks. And being a Detroit Red Wings fan, Craig Cox, when he played in the NHL, used to have some amazing fights with Bob Probert in the Joe Louis Arena. So when I played against Coxie, I asked him if he wanted to have one, and he blew me off for the first half of the year, and then in the playoffs, he finally dropped the gloves and gave me a little lesson there. So that was a fun fight, and I was pretty excited to be able to trade some shots with a legend like Craig Cox.
Former Havoc defenseman Sam Kanata.
Donnybrook in Huntsville. We must have reached 1 million views on YouTube for that one for sure. I think it was like family night because it was in between Christmas and New Year's, if I'm remembering correctly. And they had a couple guys that we just weren't getting along with throughout the year. And I can't remember if it was Chapin LeBlanc, Chaps, or Corey Fulton got hit into their bench at one point, like through the door, coming up, like he was trying to change. And it was in the third because I was at the other end of the bench. And Chaps or Fultz is looking to change, and the bench doors are right by them. And one of their guys, I can't remember his name, he's from New England too, but he checked, it must have been Chaps, into the bench through the open door. And then it kind of just went haywire. And, the guys on the ice didn't know what to do. Some guys skated over. And then we all kind of had that moment of realization, like, we got to go in there and save them. So you can see me and like Billy Bakes run out, down our bench, out onto the ice, through their open gate to try and, save our teammates. And then it was madness. Kozlowski was swinging his stick at the end there. I mean, Bootser, another one, was, just taking one of their guys to the woodshed out in the middle of the ice. So it was a wild one. I will say one thing that is a little side note there. We had to get on the bus that night, go down to Columbus and play in a matinee, I think, like a 2 p.m. game in Columbus. And because of all the fights, we had suspensions. So we played them the next day with 10 guys. That game went to overtime, and we won in overtime. Foxy might have scored the game winner there. And there was never a time when 10 people came together with the common goal, exhausted and so happy to get a win like that. So that was a good moment with a fun outcome in the next game as well.
Former center Cy Nutkovich.
Scott Trask was my roommate for 3 years there, and he's still one of my good friends. There was one time, I forget what the guy's name is, but he was on Mississippi. He was like 6'6" defenseman, and Scott was like fighting him at home near the corner of where the other team comes on the ice. And like we just saw him go to the ground, and Scott came up, and he was bleeding everywhere, and he had like a big like mouse like on his forehead, like a mountain. And we had a game the next day, so they stitched it up, but it was like so big the next day in Birmingham, it was like a golf ball, that J-Lo had to wrap his head like around with a bunch of gauze, so that way he can put his helmet on top of the golf ball so he can play the game in Birmingham.
Defenseman Charlie Risk.
It was my last year of juniors. We're in playoffs. My D partner, he just got back from a shoulder injured, and this guy was trying to fight him, but he obviously couldn't fight. He had a hurt shoulder. I kind of just grabbed the guy, and we just started throwing, and it was my first fight, and it was in playoffs, and it's probably the most significant one, I guess you could say. In juniors, if you fight, you just get kicked out for the game.
Havoc right wing Gio Procopio.
It takes a lot for me to get super angry. So for me to fight, it's almost like a last resort option. Like unless someone really, really takes me off or takes the liberties away from myself or my teammates, that's when I'll drop the gloves. But other than that, I like to stir the pot a little bit in the games. If it's being physical, hitting guys or getting in front of the net and just trying to take away the goalie's eyes or whatever, guys give me cross checks, I'll give it back. Or if there's a scrum, we played Fayetteville and Jack got hit pretty bad in the boards. Like we all jumped in as a team, and that's something that we really focus on. Just a we before me mentality, a pack mentality. If something happens during a game, we all come in and we make sure we protect our guys. That's something that's really important to me. I'm not going to go out of my way to start a fight, but if something comes up, something comes up.
Former defenseman Nolan Kaiser.
I ended up getting 8 game suspension in Roanoke there. So it was deemed by the league that I intentionally took down a ref after a fight. So I ended up getting suspended 8 games for that. I think it ended up being a ref that was kind of filling in because they were short on guys. And I was in a fight at the end of the game, and the ref ended up grabbing my arm. It kind of put me in like an arm bar a little bit, and I was trying to yank it out because their guy had already gone off and pumping up the crowd, and I was trying to kind of get away and maybe even go after him again. So we ended up getting crossed up, and I ended up falling on top of him, and he wouldn't let go. And on top of him, I was asking, like, are you gonna let go? And are you done? And I was like, yes. And then he finally let go. And then I got up and kind of got off the ice. And I guess that it was consensus that I intentionally took the ref down, got an 8 game suspension. Originally, it was like classified as a class 3 or a class 1, one of the other extremes. And so that's an automatic 25 game suspension. So they ended up changing it to an 8 game suspension. But you're taking the word of a guy that, I don't know, maybe shouldn't have been reffing, but that doesn't matter anyway. So they ended up making Free Kaiser shirts because I was coming out of basically suspension prison. So they ended up making those shirts, and then they were a big hit, and all my teammates were wearing them. There was big signs in the arena that said Free Kaiser, and that was pretty cool too, because I think we ended up playing 1 game on the road, but the first game back, the Free Kaiser night at the VBC, I ended up scoring, and we were playing against Roanoke. I ended up scoring the first goal of the game. So there's some highlights that kind of show me scoring, that there's a slap shot from the point, and it was just a big celebration because it was against Roanoke, and there was such a buzz around my name and coming back from suspension at the VBC that there was just a pretty big moment that happened there. So that was the free Kaiser thing. Really stupid incident that I got suspended for 8 games, but it was what it was. There was no change in the league's ruling. They weren't there, but they go off a video that they have, and you can only imagine what kind of video that they had. So off of hockey TV, sometimes it's difficult to justify changing a call that was made on the ice, just like in sports, right? But I just had to bite the bullet and sit out 8 games and then came back and free Kaiser. That was it.
And there you had it for our Dropping the Gloves episode. We'll be back for more of the Reekin Havoc podcast.
The Reekin Havoc podcast.
In June of 2005, our twin girls were delivered, Melissa and Catherine, and they were born 14 weeks early.
Amy and Chris George talk about the Melissa George Neonatal Memorial Fund.
They both weighed less than 2 pounds, and Catherine was 115 and Melissa was 1'9". Melissa lived for a couple of hours, but all of the medical technology in the world just could not have saved her, and she passed away while she was in the NICU. Chris realized pretty early that God had given us a platform that we could use to try to help people. So Chris and I started the Melissa George Neonatal Memorial Fund at Huntsville Hospital.
To know that Melissa's name is living on, her legacy continues, and I think that was very important to Amy and I, is why the fund is named after her. Because for 7 weeks, Melissa fought so that Aunt Catherine would have a chance to live. And I think that we wouldn't be doing her name any justice if we didn't carry on, because we know we wanted to honor her and honor her legacy. And the community, Huntsville Havoc, the community in Huntsville itself, they've rallied around that. And it's been a wonderful support system for us. And I think for a lot of families too, when they see total strangers that are giving.
We're online at HuntsvilleHospitalFoundation.org. Click on the Melissa George Neonatal Memorial Fund and you can give that way.
There's no donation that's too small, and every dollar is just as important as the next one. And if you're giving, then we understand you're giving because you care. And that's what's important, is that we've learned over the years that people give because they care.
And you can volunteer. If you're interested in that, you can click on the volunteer tab to fill out an application. We are grateful for any type of support because we know that once we pull those dollars together, we can do big things.
For more information on the Melissa George Neonatal Memorial Fund, visit HuntsvilleHospitalFoundation.org.
Hey, this is Kevin Janot, and you're listening to the Reekin Havoc podcast.
The end of season yard sale is coming up on May 3rd from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Probst Arena. There will be hockey bags and practice jerseys along with sticks, game used gear, and more. The Huntsville Havoc On Ice Youth Summer Camp is back. Session 1 is June 16th through 19th. Session 2 is July 21st through 24th. Kids can learn from head coach Stu Steffen and assistant coach Tyler Piacentini. Cost is $350 for skaters and $300 for goalies for the 4 days. For more information, go to huntsvilleHavoc.com/youth-camp.
The Reekin Havoc podcast is always looking for ways to improve. Do you have a talent you'd like to contribute to the podcast? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Email us at reekinhavoc@outlook.com and let's talk.
The Reekin Havoc podcast. For those returning from military service, the transition back to civilian life isn't always easy. Retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Bill Cook talks about still serving veterans.
The mission of Still Serving Veterans is to serve and honor veterans and their families by empowering them to build meaningful lives. And we do that through connecting to fulfilling careers, getting the benefits they deserve, or the services that they need. We have never charged anybody anything for our services. A group of business leaders in town felt there was a need to help the seriously wounded make that transition back into civilian life. Employment services, VA benefits, and connections to other community services. That's what we do. If you're a veteran and you need help, please get a hold of us. Go to that website, ssb.org, and you can find out pretty much anything you need to know about still serving veterans.
In Huntsville, call 256-883-7035. For tickets tickets, official Huntsville Havoc merchandise, and more, go to huntsvillehavoc.com. Visit our website at reekinhavoc.com. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads. And listen, follow, and subscribe to the Reekin Havoc podcast on your favorite platform to keep up with the only weekly podcast covering the Huntsville Havoc, the Reekin Havoc podcast.